Okay, we continue in Sefer Shmuel Aleph. We're in Perek Gimel now, and we're going to go a little bit quicker, believe it or not, through the Sefer. If you recall, last time we met, Elkanah came to Eli. He's called the Ish Elohim, and he gives him a very terrible prophecy because of the sins of his sons Chafni and Pinchas, and therefore Hashem is going to punish them greatly in so many ways. And if you recall, we mentioned that there was like no reaction on Eli's part, zero reaction, which seems a little bit enigmatic. So we will, not today, tomorrow, we will see, what is the result of that. But continuing this idea in Pasuk Aleph, V'hanar Shmuel mishoreis es Hashem lifnei Eli, and the young lad Shmuel, who serves Hashem before Eli, Udvar Hashem hoyo yokor bayomim haim, and the word of Hashem, meaning prophecy, was very precious in those days. Ein chazon nifratz, and the vision of prophecy was not something that was so spread out. We'll do one more pasuk. Vayihi bayomahu, and it was on that day. Ve'eli shochev bimkomo, and Eli was lying in his place. Ve'enav heichelu chehos, and his eyes were beginning to get dim. V'lo yuchal leros, and he wasn't able to see. Okay. So first off, the Rambam lists many qualities that a Navi must have. Based on a Gemara, Navi has to be strong, has to be rich, also has to have many spiritual qualities, humility, other qualities, many qualities a Navi has to have. And the Abarbanel proves from Shmuel's prophecy at such a young age that you don't necessarily need to have all those qualities, because he was still a very young fellow. We know he doesn't really become the shofet until age 12. That's when he fully takes over. So he's a young fellow. I don't know the exact age over here, but he can't be. He's still called a nar. So clearly he's a young lad. But the Abarbanel says, obviously you don't have to have all those qualities. Now, you don't have to say like the Abarbanel. You could say that he was extremely advanced. We've seen already that he was able to give rebuke to Eli and successfully survive that. So that was when he was 2 years old. So you can imagine after a few more years what he could accomplish. So I don't know if you have to necessarily hold like the Abarbanel. But what's most salient for our learning today is that the Malbim, in these first few psukim, going into Pasuk Gimel, there's a number of things, reasons he lists why Shmuel indeed is the servant of this prophecy. So let's take a look in the first two psukim as we read already. He brings the first four reasons over here. And he says that the number one reason is because it is in terms of Shmuel himself. The merit of Shmuel being a mishoreis es Hashem. He's a servant of Hashem. Constantly, it's in the past, it's in the present tense, mishoreis. He's serving Hashem. Mishoreis can mean he is serving and is a servant. He's a constant servant of Hashem. He's working on his avodas Hashem. And it says, Lifnei Eli, before Eli. What does it mean before Eli? So the Malbim says that he is already advancing beyond Eli in levels of inner holiness. He's before Eli. He's in front of Eli. He's ahead of Eli. So in terms of himself, there's already reasons that he should become a Navi. That's number one. Number two, and this can, all these kind of address this Abarbanel. It's like to say he wasn't totally not worthy for Nevuah. He was already Mishoreis Hashem. He was ahead of Eli. Second point is really extremely important because it says that Devar Hashem hayayokor bayomim haim, the word of Hashem was very precious in these days. Meaning to say, there was very little prophecy. Meaning to say there were very few people worthy to be prepared that the Spirit of Hashem should come to them. And that's what it means, Ein Chazon Nifratz. The visions of Hashem were not spreading out. Meaning to say, Hashem yearns the flow of the divine presence resting on a person and giving him the pleasure of a prophetic experience. That naturally wants to come to those that are ready. And the prophet Isaiah discusses how Hashem's prophecy is like going to those that are thirsty and bringing His Spirit to those that are longing for it. However, in this generation, there really weren't any people who were prepared, didn't work on themselves to be the type of person worthy to receive this spirit of Hashem's presence. And he gives an analogy to, let's say, a river that's full to its banks, and there's no place for the water. It wants to go over the side. It wants to keep flowing, and there's nowhere for it to continue. You know, almost like if you have a dike that's holding water, and the water wants to get out, it wants to go ahead, and it's looking for any crack that will enable the water to get out. And if it finds the smallest of cracks, okay, that river will break through with a rush as it finds that weak spot, as it were, with a big torrent of water, and will fill all the areas of the field around it. So that's the idea over here. Hashem is like the big raging river. He wants to pour out His spirit of prophecy in the biggest way to the Jewish people. That's what Hashem wanted to do. But the problem is there weren't people worthy of receiving it. There wasn't, what would you call it? Locks, that L-O-C-K-S, that would be able to allow the water to go to the next area in any proper form. So it's looking for that little crack, and Shmuel is that little crack. And since Shmuel was at least prepared to some extent for prophecy, so then as it comes much more than it normally would come. If you normally have a river that's flowing and it's not being held back, and there's a little crack on the side, a little water will go. Maybe no water, because it's flowing in the direction where it's heading to go. But if it's bursting, ready to come out, then the smallest crack will allow it, it will go through. So therefore, since Shmuel, even though yet maybe he was young, maybe he wasn't fully developed, maybe in another generation he would not have received the prophecy, because there was enough prophecy going around. But in a starved for prophecy generation, and was only getting more starved, as we'll see in a minute, so therefore anybody making any effort will be able to receive a tremendous amount of prophecy. Thinking about that, we comment, how are we ever going to bring the Mashiach? Previous generations haven't been able to accomplish it. I think this might be one, not the only answer, but one of the answers to this issue. Because you have to remember, if there isn't, it's been a couple thousand years since Hashem has brought prophecy to the world. And that's Hashem's greatest desire, is to bring it. It's His greatest desire to bring it. Of course, there's all kinds of factors why it hasn't come. But certainly, and more than that, Hashem wants to bring Mashiach, more than anything else. And sometimes if it just builds and builds, the longer it waits, the longer it builds, then sometimes all you maybe need is a crack. Maybe in previous generations a crack wouldn't be enough. But maybe now all we really need is a crack. And maybe we don't even have a crack. So a crack, maybe we could provide a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And then once the crack is open, we can all come flying out. Perhaps. Certainly, on an individual level, this is true. Individuals who really want to get close to Hashem, certainly Hashem wants to get close to us. And therefore, the fact that there's so many people who are not close to Hashem, and we're saying, oh yeah, I'd have to be so great, I'd have to be so amazing to be close to Hashem. Of course, you have to be great to a certain extent, but you don't have to be as great as people were of yesteryear, because they just don't have it anymore. So therefore, anybody who really sincerely is trying their best and is offering a little crack, Hashem is going to really help the person, come to the person. I think that's a very powerful message that we see over here. So that's two of the reasons so far that Shmuel was constantly serving Hashem. He was even ahead of Eli. And number two, Nevuah was so scarce, any crack will be accepted. So let's go on for a few more reasons. Pasuk Beis, the Malbim continues and says there's another reason why the prophecy would come to him, because it says Vayihi bayomahu. It was on that day. On what day? What day was it? Well, the only day we know about was the day that was referred to in the Psukim beforehand. It was referring to way back in Pasuk Chav Zayin, when it said, and a man of God came to Eli and spoke to him and said the following scary prophecy to him. So now Pasuk Beis, the Malbim says, is following up to that. It was on that day, on that very same day. And what Hashem wanted to do is to connect immediately one vision with another vision. As we mentioned last time, that Eli gets one word from Hashem that it's going to be pretty bad. Okay, you could say, well, not every prophecy necessarily comes true. A prophecy for bad, if tshuva is done, can help. But when you're getting a second prophecy in the same day or very soon right afterwards, so that just like we had by Yosef when he translated Paro's dream, when Paro had two dreams in one, and Yosef said, why are you having the two dreams? Because Hashem is rushing to make it happen. It is for sure in the reality realm and just waiting to happen. So it's the same thing. Hashem wants this decree that's been informed already through the first prophecy, and now it will be confirmed, as we'll see shortly. So that means Hashem is rushing and making great efforts to making this thing happen. So that's another reason why Shmuel gets the prophecy, because of the circumstance. A lot of this is circumstantial. It's the fact that Shmuel is trying. Of course you have to try, and that again is important. You never know how great your efforts can return benefits way beyond the amount of effort you make, because you don't know the circumstances. So Shmuel, didn't realize so prophecy was weak, therefore he's got a better chance to get in. Didn't realize there was another prophecy given that day, and Hashem needs to provide another prophecy to hasten the information to the people that the prophecy affects. These are all factors that make conditions ripe for someone who's trying to get prophecy, even though he himself, on a normal set of track conditions, would not have received the prophecy. So that's another factor involved. Factor number 4, it says that on Eli's part, that Eli now is regressing in his spiritual levels, because that's hinted to when it says in Pasuk Beis, the Eli shochev bimkomo. Eli is lying in his place. He's lying to sleep in his place. Meaning to say, he wasn't, as we'll see in the next Pasuk, he wasn't focusing. We'll see by Shmuel, for example, it says that Shmuel is sleeping, we'll have to understand what it means, in the Heichal Hashem. In the Mishkan, in the holy place. We'll see what that means in a minute, but it's obviously very close to the spirituality.
So what's that?
No, it says here, Eli shochev bimkomo, not beheichal Hashem. He was shochev in his place. In his place, meaning wherever he was in his place, but not in heichal Hashem. And this is understood spiritually, mean to say that he was focusing on his own thoughts, but not in the Heichal Hashem. His thoughts weren't so much in spiritual things anymore, as we'll see in the next pasuk. Shmuel is constantly lying down, thinking about Hashem. Here he's shochev bimkomo, meaning his physical makom. That's a real kind of sleep. A sleep focusing on his own physical needs, whatever they may be, on his level. And really the avod of a kohen is to constantly be on guard for the Beis HaMikdash, and even at night the kohen should constantly be thinking, especially the kohen gadol, should be thinking about Hashem and not so much about his own personal issues, his own physical issues. And that we see now Eli is going down in level. remember we mentioned he's getting to be an old man. He's getting to be an old man. So then it says his eyes were having troubles. His eyes were getting dim. He wasn't able to see. So it was a sudden advancement of age. He was getting older in age very quickly. Wasn't able to see totally. Obviously, not just on a physical realm. Wasn't able to see all the faults that were going on. Wasn't able to see spiritually as much as he was able to see before. And just like we know in Yiddishkeit that the pasuk says that before the sun sets, there's a new sun that rises on the new horizon. And as Eli is about to set, great tzaddik that he was, no question, he was a great tzaddik. But as he is about to set, a new sun arises from the other side of the horizon. So therefore we're seeing the decline of Eli. And because of the decline of Eli, Hashem cannot leave the Jewish people without a leader. So before this leader, this old leader totally fizzles out and passes away, the new leader has to begin, although it may be a bit premature under normal circumstances, but Hashem has to hurry things up to put things into the place that they have to be in. All critical factors. Again, I think it's very encouraging because the more we look at our generation, the more we see that it's really going down the tubes, then Hashem has got to be putting some things into place to replace this and to bring new hope for the Jewish people. So now Pasuk Gimel gives us
no continuity. You see, it was Eli and then came Shmuel. Here we have no continuity. The continuity has been broken.
We don't know about that. I wouldn't be so fast to say that. There have been rabbis teaching students. We haven't broken the chain of Torah learning. Still have Torah leaders.
But the prophecy changed.
Prophecy's been gone for 2,000 years. That's another story. But there's prophecy and there's other aspects of spirituality that exist.
Shmuel was 12 years old when all has happened. I'm just thinking even today, we have tzaddikim and learned people that are probably at much higher level than Shmuel was at that time.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either.
I don't know if you could say that.
From all their writings and all the things that they did, you can see how advanced they were, at least in the study of Torah, and yet there is no continuity.
First of all, there is continuity. If we didn't have continuity, Jewish people would cease to exist.
From a prophetic point of view.
Okay, that hasn't happened. There's other reasons why that hasn't happened. It was prayed for that the spiritual playing field should be lowered, and we're not. I don't want to get into that now. After the first temple was destroyed, the desire, the Yetzer Hara for idolatry was removed that it existed now, and with that, God removed prophecy as well. So the whole playing field's been reduced. So we don't need to look for prophecy right now. We need to look for people who are overcoming the negative influences that exist. That's what we need right now. So, and there can be people who can, emerge. The point I'm saying is, you could see leaders from, places that you'd be surprised to expect to find a leader because of the conditions that exist. That's the point I'm making. Shmuel is catapulted way beyond his abilities because conditions were ripe for that to happen. That's all I'm saying. So I'm saying in terms of our own spiritual growth, we could be catapulted, even though under normal circumstances it wouldn't happen. But you never know when the conditions are ripe. And that's the point we're making over here. That Shmuel was able to go beyond his efforts because of the conditions. And I'm saying the same thing can happen for anybody. He can see results beyond his efforts because the conditions are ripe. And that is true. Regardless, we're not necessarily having to go about prophecy. It can be whatever we need. There's levels of growth of spirituality. And Hashem could help us reach levels beyond what we normally could reach on our own. That's the point I'm trying to make over here. And all of us are looking to grow spiritually. And if the conditions are ripe, if there's a great desire, if the spirituality is scarce, and Hashem wants to share it with people, and if there's other conditions, other leaders are falling away, we need new ones, it's possible for that to happen. That's the point I'm making over here. So I'm saying don't lose heart if you haven't feel that if you've reached that spiritual goal yet. Keep working at it, and you never know when the condition can create itself that you can go beyond what you normally would be able to do.
So I'm talking particularly about the Shekhinah that has no longer appear, so all these generations who have
I understand, fine, don't worry about that. On a simple level, we want everybody to feel their neshama. As we've been talking about for years, to feel your neshama that's inside you. That for us would be the same thing as feeling the Shekhinah. Because your neshama is very holy to Him. It's not the Shekhinah, but that's part of God's Shekhinah. That's inside of us now, that we should be able to access, that we're not accessing. That's our own quote-unquote, miniature prophecy for our own selves, to feel our neshamas. That itself is something very precious. Very few people feel their neshamas today. Forget about prophecy. How about feeling your neshama? That's a spiritual thing. How many people, interview them, when's the last time you felt your soul? And that's something that everyone is capable of, any generation. Anyone is capable. That's what Chassidus is all about, to be able to feel it. Very few people feel it. You can't give up. You have to keep trying, and then conditions can create itself that Hashem will grant you these blessings. So let's not worry about the prophecies. Let's worry about what is achievable, that very few have achieved, is to feel your neshama. Again, I'll say it again. If you felt your neshama, there's no way you could say goodbye to Shabbos. There's no way you could say goodbye to Shabbos. I'm not meaning as a criticism of people. I'm just saying that's the reality. If you really felt it, you'd understand what Shabbos was. You'd feel the Shabbos. It would be a pull that you just couldn't get yourself away from. Stronger than sports. I'm sure there were people yesterday who had to watch all 3 soccer games. Like as if they care what's going with Uruguay and Chile. But if you really love something, you can't get enough of it. So for physical things, it's easy. The body, we're in tune with the body. The body likes it. The body stays with it. You're not in touch with your neshama. If Hashem says Shabbos is an einig, and you don't feel it's an einig, who's got the problem? Hashem or us? We do. And I don't mean an einig that it's a pleasure, I don't have to worry about business. That's not the einig we're talking about. It's the real delight. It's a delight. Right? So it's a real delight. But can't give up. Can't give up. And Hashem can help us one day when conditions are ripe that you'll be able to feel it. But the beginning was Shmuel Misharei Hashem. He's plugging away. He's doing what he can do. That's all. That's all he can do. And he gets out of the politics. What's going to be with the Jewish people? What's going to be with the... You don't think he saw the corruption every day in the temple? He saw it every day. He said, but I got to do what I got to do. He didn't go up and start lambasting Eli. For one time, a korban had to be brought. And he saw Chil Hashem happening. He spoke up. But it was Nogei his mother. But otherwise, you don't see the Navi saying that Shmuel came over and criticized him. He says, I got a job to do, but my job is to be an Eved Hashem. It's very important. You can be in environments where there's lots of politics in the air. Lots of politics. So you can get into the politics and be stuck with the politics. Or you can say, I don't care about the politics. I just want to be an Eved Hashem. I want to know how to daven better. I want to know how to learn better. I want to know how to care about people better. Keep me out of the politics. And that's all. And that's what Shmuel did. And then Hashem blessed him. He was able to go beyond what he could reach. Okay, let's continue. We need reasons 5 and 6. So now that we've given... and 5 and 6 continue explaining how the spiritual conditions made this happen. Let's read Pasuk Gimel inside. V'ner Elokim, and the flame of Hashem, meaning that of the menorah, Terem Yichbeh, it's before it went out. They lit the menorah every evening, towards evening, and the candles, the lights would go from almost the entire night, and by the end of the night they would go out, except for one. So what time of day was it? It was really pre-morning era, way into the night. We'll see what that means. Ushmuel shechev, Shmuel is sleeping. Beheichal Hashem, in the Heichal Hashem, in the sanctuary of Hashem. Asher Sham Arein Elikim, where there the Aron, the Ark of Hashem, was. Now, there's a major problem over here. No one is allowed to sleep in the Heichal Hashem. You can't sleep in the sanctuary of Hashem. You're going to sleep next to Aron HaKodesh. Sleep somewhere in the Mishkan. It's a chutzpah. Can't do that. So we'll see in a minute. It will be addressed. But let's start with the first part. The fifth reason is the first part, where it says that the light of Hashem had not yet gone out. Meaning to say that in terms of physical time, it's the end of the night. Right? And that flame that's been flickering all night, as it comes close to day, it goes out. And we know that the soul is most spiritual at the end of the evening, because you've been away from the physical world for many hours. There's when you just go to sleep. Did I say the end of the day? The end of the night. Yeah, the end of the evening. The end of the night. The end of the night is when you be more spiritual. Right when you go to sleep, in the beginning of the night, you're still remembering everything of the physical day. You still were in touch with your physical body. But as the night wears on, and you're less in touch with the physical, you're more in touch with the spiritual. Just like the mystics say that if you have a dream, most of the time it's nonsense, because it's just reflecting that which you've been thinking about in the physical world, and there's no spiritual ramifications at all. If there is any, and it needs a number of factors, but one of the factors is that dream would have to come well late into the evening, pre-dawn, because then you're already far away from what you've been thinking about during the day, and perhaps there's a spiritual message. But the same thing regarding Shmuel over here. It has to be at a time of night, where way into the night, and therefore all the physical chemistry of the person has kind of subsided, and it's more of the spiritual chemistry that's taking over the person, and that's a prime time for someone to receive a prophecy, pre-dawn time. And finally, number 6 is, it says Shmuel is lying in the Heichal Hashem, which we cannot say that, because we know the place of the Levite is outside of the Mishkan. So the rabbis say that we have to understand it as that he is thinking about the Heichal Hashem. He's sleeping, he's lying with the thoughts of the Heichal Hashem. He's thinking constantly of spirituality, the Heichal, the Aron, the Avodas Hashem, the Torah, all these things. He's sleeping by it, meaning to say, with his thoughts are constantly engaged in it. And if you look at the trup, for those who know the cantillation, you'll see it has to be understood that way. Because if you look under the word shochev, under the chav, you see that wishbone, that is the esnachta. The esnachta says you stop. So when you'd be reading it, it would be like this. V'ner Elokim terem yichve u'shmuel shochev. Pause. Then Beheichal Hashem Asher Shamaroin Elokim. So why is there a pause under the shochev? If he was sleeping in the Heichal, it should have said shochev Beheichal Hashem. Pause. So it's not saying he slept in the Heichal Hashem. He slept. It was as the candle was almost out and Shmuel was asleep. And what was Shmuel thinking about? Beheichal Hashem Asher Shamaroin Elokim. It was about the Heichal Hashem, where the Aron Elokim was. His thoughts were on that. Okay? So on the simple level, if you read it without the proper punctuation, then it runs right into the Heichal Hashem. So it's a misleading pasuk, because it wants to mislead you to the extent that he's thinking about it. But in actuality, he's not sleeping there. So those are the 6 reasons why Shmuel was able to receive this prophecy. Conditions were very right, but see, the bottom line is he's thinking about the Aron. He's thinking about the holy things. That's what his thoughts are into, not into Mishigasim. And that's why he's going to get that prophecy, because the other conditions are ripe and enabling him to succeed. Yeah?
So why does it specify the Aron? Like if he's thinking about the Heichal, the Aron is in it.
Because the Aron is the key. It's not just the services. Everything comes from the Aron. In other words, a lot of times people can be involved in doing mitzvahs, but they're not really thinking what's it doing for you. Remember, serving Hashem is to get close to Hashem. Right? Now what's the part of the Mishkan that really represents the closeness to Hashem? It's the Aron. Everything comes from the Aron. Aron is the Torah. Aron has the kruvim on top of it. The Trubik-like figures. That is, it's not just thinking about the heichal. What do I got to do tomorrow? What's going to be on task? How many karbanos I got to bring? Which is nice, but you never know how sincere those thoughts are. But it's where the Aron is, the Aron Elokim. Now it's called the Aron Elokim, the Aron, the attribute of justice. And he's thinking about, what does the Aron mean? The Aron means Hashem's Torah, Hashem's relationship to us. The Kruvim on top. How's my relationship with Hashem doing? It shows you that it's not just avoda, but it's a deep avoda that he's thinking about. That's the emphasis is over there. Okay, so but he really wasn't sleeping there, and the Ralbag mentions he was sitting in a room next to the Aron, but he wasn't sleeping there. Okay, so now Hashem is about to speak to Shmuel, but of course he does it in a very slow way. He doesn't just overwhelm the neophyte. And the next few psukim, we see the steps that lead to this first prophetic moment. Pasuk Dalet. So you got the scene, nice, quiet. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And this is the moment of transition, right? Vayikra Hashem el Shmuel. Hashem calls to Shmuel. Vayomer hineni, and he says, "Here I am." So now, what is Shmuel thinking when this is happening? He's thinking that Eli's calling him. Okay? And he says, "Here I am." You know, so Eli should know that I'm not asleep. He's figuring, in other words, he ain't asleep. If someone's calling him, I mean, he's lying on his bed, doesn't mean he's sleeping. He hears a voice. He figures it's Eli's voice. Obviously, what's happening here? Hashem is calling Shmuel with Eli's voice. And it's interesting, the Medrash, when Hashem spoke to Moshe, he spoke to Moshe with Moshe's father's voice the first time as well. In other words, he's trying to show this is a fatherly voice. It's a voice of love, a voice of closeness, a voice that he'll be able to relate to and feel comfortable with. So initially, he thinks it's Eli. So he says, "Here I am. What do you want?" And before Eli responds, because Eli obviously is not going to respond, because it's not Eli, it's Hashem. So in Pasuk Hey, Vayoratz el Eli, he runs to Eli, Vayomer, and he says, "Hineni, here I am, ki karaseli, for you have called me." Vayomer, and Eli said, "Lo karasi, I haven't called you. Shuv shchav, go back to sleep, go lie down." Vayelech vayishkav, he went down and he went back to lie down. He went back to sleep. So now, what was Eli thinking? So the Malbim says Eli was thinking that perhaps Shmuel was imagining things, because that can happen. Sometimes people's senses fool them, and they think someone's calling them. So there he says, just go back to sleep. Just figured, Shmuel was making an honest mistake. All right. Now, the commentaries explain a little bit more over here. They say, so why did he think it was Eli? So again, you could say he heard the voice. There's a whole discussion, and it's way beyond what we can really understand. Where does prophecy take place within the person? It's a whole discussion. Obviously, a prophecy has to take place within the mind of the Navi. It has to be in his mind, obviously. And when he gets it, right, there's an interesting rule. When a prophet, generally speaking, when a prophet gets a prophecy, other prophets are aware of it as well. Remember, Hashem is sending a transmission, it's coming in a frequency. And, to be anyone who's a prophet is on that frequency. It's like, remember the old days when you had the ham radios, where, you could listen to a lot of things that's going on, right? All around, you can hear lots of interesting conversations that are meant for other people. So when you're a Navi, you sort of are on that band wavelength. So that's one thing. So a person has to focus his mind to realize he's getting a prophecy. And since Nevuah is in the mind, right, you have to hear a voice you expect to hear. It's got to be in your zone of expectation. So that's why he's hearing Eli. Now it's interesting, Rashi comments that in terms of where they were sleeping, you had the Ark and the Mishkan, and then in terms of order, Eli really was sleeping closer to the Mishkan than Shmuel was, because after all, he was the Kohen Gadol. And the prophecy, as it were, so to speak, emanated from the Heichal, emanated from the Mishkan, And so to speak, it passed by Eli and went to Shmuel. Now this is going to be a big chiddush, because it appears here already, you see, Eli did not get the nevuah. Normally Eli should have gotten it because he was a Navi. But since we mentioned Eli was on the decline and Shmuel was on the ascent, so the prophecy kind of just skipped right over Eli and it went to Shmuel. And since that happened, so Shmuel could misinterpret it coming from Eli, because the message came over Eli, right? And as the Rambam suggests that every nevuah is internal, the Abarbanel suggests that nevuah can also be external. It can come from a voice from outside. You know, like if you're watching a movie, and it's interesting that Abarbanel, very scary Abarbanel, he brings one of his proofs. You can understand. He says, because even the Christian scholars say it's so as well. But anyway, but the Malbim seems to agree with the Abarbanel here that there is some kind of voice. It could be. Listen, the Jews at Har Sinai heard a voice that was coming. Be that as it may, was internal, external voice. You know, it's more than we can handle. But the point being, the prophecy kind of came over Eli, beyond Eli, and Shmuel could certainly have mistaken that for Eli speaking to him. So that's why he thought it was Eli, and he rushed. See the derech eretz he had. Vayoretz el Eli. He ran to Eli. Eli said, "I didn't call you." Okay, pasuk vav. Vayesef Hashem. Hashem continues. Kro od Shmuel, to call to Shmuel again. Okay, now it didn't say, it doesn't say what Hashem said either of them. It says he called. We don't know what he called, but he called again. This time it does not say that Shmuel said Hineni. It's just, and it doesn't say he runs. It says Vayokom Shmuel. Shmuel gets up. Vayelech el Eli. He comes to Eli. Vayomer, he says Hineni. Here I am. Ki karasli, because you've called me. So two things are different. He doesn't say Hineni. He doesn't say here I am. And number two, doesn't run. So why doesn't he do that? Because he already knows that Eli's awake. First time he got called, he said, if it's Eli, he says, Hineni, here I am. You know, in other words, you should know that I'm awake, rather. Shmuel wants Eli to know he's awake. When he said, Hineni, I'm awake. But it was only a couple minutes later, he doesn't have to say, Hineni, I'm awake, because Eli would have already known he's awake. He doesn't run like the first time because he's a little bit embarrassed, because he doesn't understand like what's going on. If it seems to be Eli's calling me, but if it's not, Eli didn't call me the last time, it's going to look awfully foolish, me going again, but who else is calling me? So I'll have to go back to Eli. He wasn't running because he wasn't sure if it was Eli or not. He wasn't sure at all what was going on, but he knew at least he's got to go over to Eli. Vayomer, and Eli said, Lo karasi b'ni, my son, I didn't call you. Shu shchav, go back to bed. He adds a word now. What word is he adding? He says, my son. Because Eli's beginning to understand, perhaps he's getting a prophecy. It's coming. And one thing you don't want is someone to be anxious when a prophecy's coming. So he says the word b'ni, a sign of love. You know, don't be frightened, don't be scared, don't think you're going crazy, my son, because you have to be in a calm state to receive the prophecy. So now he wants to see, maybe Hashem's going to call him a third time. So Eli's already getting suspicious on this time that perhaps it's a prophecy. Shmuel isn't sure at all what's going on over here. Pasuk Zayin. Remember, and why is Shmuel so confused? Because Shmuel terem yadas Hashem. This is before Shmuel knew Hashem. V'terem yigoleh elov dvar Hashem. It's before the word of Hashem was revealed to him. This is why, even though Shmuel, we'll see, will be called 3 times, he didn't have any understanding. How this all works. There were no prophecy schools going on over him for him to understand himself. That's why he didn't get it. So Pasuk Ches continues, says, Vayesef Hashem kro Shmuel bashlishis. Hashem continues to call Shmuel a 3rd time. Vayokam vayelech el Eli. He gets up and goes to Eli. Vayomer hineni ki karasali. Here I am, for you have called me. Vayoven Eli, and now Eli understood ki Hashem koirei lanor, that Hashem is calling to the young lad. Okay, so with this already he understands, and therefore he's saying, the Malbim adds over here that those who investigate, the latter rabbis, in terms of how the prophecy works, he says sometimes it comes intellectually, internally, but how you get a spiritual influence, knowledge, a clear knowledge that comes into your brain. Sometimes it comes with an image through various forms that you see through your imagination, but here it's a real imagination. Sometimes it comes more in a way that you can sense and feel, let's say through a voice that comes through your ear, or different visions that you see with your eyes. And he says, he differs with the Rambam, who says there's nothing physical at all about a prophecy. And the Rambam says, and it was from this latter type, was the calling out to Shmuel. And that's why the prophecy came in this way, that he should make the mistake and first run to Eli. And why? This is a beautiful thing. In other words, Malbim's position is prophecy can come totally internally or starting externally. So why didn't Hashem just come internally then? Why is this whole external business? Because he wanted Shmuel to make the mistake and think it was Eli calling him. If it's just in your mind, you're not hearing voices, but you're seeing images, he wouldn't have gone to Eli. What if Hashem would have given him an image of a picture, running across the screen, words coming across the screen? It is I, Hashem, I want to speak to you. He wouldn't think it's Eli. Why is Hashem causing the situation to be such that Eli is aware that Shmuel is getting a prophecy? Hashem could have given him a prophecy without Eli being aware. The answer is because if Eli is aware that Shmuel is getting a prophecy, he's going to ask Shmuel, what was the prophecy that you heard? Because Eli is understanding, why is it that I know he's getting a prophecy and I'm not getting a prophecy? So Eli knows that means there's things I got to be thinking about. And I got to know what the prophecy is about. And indeed, Hashem wants Eli to know about the prophecy, but Eli's not worthy to get the prophecy anymore. Shmuel has to get the prophecy. Since Shmuel has to get the prophecy, but you'll see the prophecy is intended for him to give it over to Eli, but Shmuel will be too afraid to give it over to Eli. So now if Eli will know what's going on, then Shmuel will not be able to hide the prophecy from Eli. And indeed, that's what Pasuk Tes says, and we'll close with that. Vayomer Eli Shmuel, so Eli says to Shmuel, Leich shchav, go back to sleep, v'hoyim yikrei lecha, and if you get called again, v'amarta, this is what you should say, Daber Hashem, speak Hashem, ki shoymea avdecha, because your servant is listening. So now Eli's telling him this, and now Eli will know that, and he'll know the next day, I'm sure he's going to go over to Shmuel and say, hey, by the way, did you get the prophecy? Vayelech Shmuel, and Shmuel went, Vayishkav bimkomo, and he slept in his place, meaning what place? In the place he was originally sleeping, meaning the Heichal Hashem, meaning thinking very spiritual thoughts. Right? So that's what it's saying, that he's preparing himself now for the Nevuah. He now knows he's getting one, so he has to put himself in that zone to prepare himself to receive the Nevuah. And tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, will see what the first Nevuah was to Shmuel.